Malcolm Louie here. Welcome to Eversprint.com. Today we're speaking with Geoff Habicht, the president and co-founder of Smoking Vapor, a fast-growing company that designs, manufactures, and distributes lines of premium electronic vaporizers for the electronic cigarette and cannabis market. We'll be talking today about how he increased his company's revenue 454% from 1.2 million in 2014 to 6.8 million in 2017. Welcome to the call, Geoff.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Geoff, how did you do it? How did you boost revenue 454% over 3 years?
It's holistically, right? You look back on it and you're like, wow, where did we come from and how did we get here? I think that at its core, as a business, we've always focused on the end consumer, and making sure that we understood better than anybody else in our market what the consumer wanted. And for Smoking Vapor, as we've grown and to design our own products, the rest of the industry was chasing the vaping culture, right? These are the extreme vapors, right, that want bigger clouds and more vapor. And so that's where a lot of the focus from an engineering and design standpoint for other businesses went. And I think one of the things we realized is that we were former smokers, and we quit smoking by vaping. And there's a billion of those people on the planet still, and how do we help those people quit?
When you say we, who are you referring to, Geoff?
Yeah, so it's myself and my business partner, Amir Hakak. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I met Amir through a mutual friend back in 2012. He had, at the time, had started Smoking Vapor as a small retail business, but wanted to expand because he had all these ideas, and he's like, how do I make my own products and sell them to other people? Because I know a lot about the consumer and what they want and need. At the time, I was selling another business, and he gave me an e-cig, and I quit smoking. And I was like, wow, there's something to this.
Fantastic. How long did that take from the time you started using the e-cig and you just gave up cigarettes?
Completely, it took 3 months for me.
Okay.
What's crazy about that is that I had been, a smoker for 15 years. So it was a significant. I tried to quit a dozen times, but every time you go out and meet up with your friends and somebody pulls out a cigarette, you're like, it's a hard thing to stop,
right.
No matter how hard you try. That was in 2012. It's, here we are in the end of 2018, and I haven't had a cigarette since, and nor do I have any craving for them.
Now, do you think your customers are buying your product for the same reason, to quit smoking the traditional cigarette, or are there other reasons why they're buying your product?
Yeah, I think there's two bases of our customer, right? There's the guys that are already vaping, that are looking for something that's less obnoxious than the other large vape devices on the market, and there are people that are looking for an alternative to smoking, right? I mean, it's a social habit. They've tried to quit smoking and they can't, so this is a viable alternative.
Right.
And there's that's the growing segment of our market. And that's really where we focused, was who are the people like us that wanted to switch to something that was didn't make us stink, that was a lot less intrusive, and that was much safer for us than smoking. And that's really where we focused.
Okay, so now, how much of your business is coming from actually selling the devices, the vaporizers, as opposed to selling the liquid for them to vaporize?
Well, we're a hardware manufacturing business, right? So we engineer and design hardware. So we don't manufacture any e-liquid. Our retail stores are now only about 3% of our business. So we're getting out of the retail space.
Okay.
So we are focused, and we're unique because almost every other hardware manufacturer is a Chinese-based company in our industry.
Are all your sales just coming from people buying your products repeatedly, or are you just acquiring a huge number of new customers who are buying your product for the first time and they keep on using it?
Yeah, it's a growing market, right? It's about exposure. When we started making our own own products, when we made the mistakes of using contract manufacturers. And it's what everybody has to do. You go over, you find somebody who can make this product for you, you bring them engineering designs. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, we kept making really cool stuff, but it kept getting knocked off or being, sold out the back door or under somebody else's brand. And there were a variety of different reasons for that. And so it was really hard for us to control our own design and our own IP. So in 2015, we actually built our own facility in Shenzhen from the ground up. So the capital equipment's ours, the design's ours. The factory only makes things for our business. And by being able to do that, we could also control our sub-component suppliers.
Okay.
So we could make sure that the quality control was exactly what we needed it to be. And that was a huge, huge lift for us because once we could control all aspects of the manufacturing process, we could build a brand that mattered to our consumers. And so the market is so vast. The electronic cigarette and both the cannabis market and vaping in general is in its infancy. So a lot of our growth is acquisition of new users.
Okay. How long do they stay with you once they start buying your product?
Surprisingly, we've had customers that have been with us since the beginning, 9, 10 years.
Wow, okay.
Because it's right, wrong, or indifferent, since the beginning, the dawn of man, right? People have been smoking,
right.
Whether it's Native Americans or Egyptians or whoever it happens to be. And so it's kind of a part. I think there's something ingrained in humanity, but it's a part. It kind of becomes a part of culture. And smokers have been ostracized, rightfully so, over the past decade because of how bad it is for them and the people around them. But it's so difficult to quit. It left a lot of people in a place where there's nothing they could do. So finding a viable alternative like vaping was. It made a huge difference in my life, and I think as the customer, as people have made that change, and other smokers have seen their friends switch to vaping, it's created this word of mouth effect,
right?
And we're seeing more and more people adopt it every day.
Mm-hmm. So your large part of your growth is coming from acquiring new users, but yet you have a pretty significant repeat business as well. Like, why are your customers buying your product over and over again? Why aren't they just sticking with their latest purchase they made from you and just keeping on using it going forward? What's motivating them to upgrade or try different products?
I think we continue to release new products that are improved from over the last one. The technology is so new that every 90 days we have something new, a eureka moment where we've been able to increase battery life while reducing size, or improve the flavor profile, or create a device that will, is more fashion forward. Or it's just, think about it like an iPhone, right? Like they're releasing a new phone every single year.
Yeah.
People that are an iPhone user, they come back and they might have bought a 6, now they're going to buy an 8.
Right.
So the same thing happens in the vaping industry. It's for people who were heavy smokers that switch to vaping. Your vape device kind of becomes, you use it regularly throughout the day, and so if something that is easier to use or simpler to refill or has a better quality, people are looking for those improvements as the technology advances.
How much of your growth over the past 3 years came from acquiring new customers as opposed to them just buying more and more of your product, your existing customers just buying more and more of your product?
I think almost all of our growth has come, honestly, from, I would say 80% is new customer growth.
Okay.
But a part of that also is that, somebody who is using a device that's of lower quality from another manufacturer, something they may have bought at the gas station, let's say, those people are converting to higher quality products like the ones that we produce.
Mm-hmm. I take it you've never had the case of your products blowing up while someone was using it, as I've read in the news a few months back?
No, no. A lot of things you hear in the news are about it's not the devices, it's the batteries.
Okay.
Because those larger vape devices use lithium-ion batteries, typically called 18650s or 21700s, which is just the size of the battery. And if the batteries wrapping gets damaged at all, they can spark or vent if they get too hot. The devices that we manufacture are much smaller, compact devices, and all of our devices have PCB boards or printed circuit boards inside them that have short circuit protection, overload protection, all of those things to prevent any of those things from happening. So when you hear about those things, they typically are what's called an unregulated device, meaning it doesn't have a chipset in it that would prevent that from happening.
Right.
But again, our devices, we don't use batteries that are of that size or scale that could ever cause them to vent like that.
Is that a key criteria when people are buying your product, safety, or they don't really think about it so much?
I think these days it's becoming far more important. Any time that you're, buying a consumer product, it has to, the companies manufacturing them have to make sure they go through the proper, consumer product safety protocols to ensure that the users are safe. And I think one of the things we pride ourselves on is not only the quality control engineering, but making sure that we're doing things that are always in the best interest of the consumer.
Yep. For those consumers that stopped buying your product to go somewhere else, and then they came back, did they ever give you any reasons why they came back to you? First of all, did they give you reasons why they left, and then give you reasons why they came back?
Yeah, sure. There was a period of time where we weren't releasing new devices. Like we were, when we were building our own manufacturing facility. As a company, you ebb and flow as far as what we were able to do back then, because we didn't raise capital when we built this business. It was all bootstrapped. So there were times where we had to cut back on product development or cut back on production, or we missed the trend of creating our own e-liquids and things like that. So people moved on to bigger devices because they wanted certain flavors or things like that they couldn't use in our older devices.
Okay.
But then we released a new device and then they come back. And I'd say, to be honest with you, more often than not, people come back and then stay with us because of the customer service.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Sometimes we've bought stuff from the vendors on Alibaba, and I can't say we've been thrilled about the experience when things don't work out.
Yeah, I think, and I'm active on in our industry, it's big as far as like the consumers are on the Reddit chat boards, the industry associations, and so personally, myself and my business partner are active in engaging with the consumers on those forums in our, limited free time.
Yep.
Because it's important for us to keep our pulse on what's going on in the market and hearing something that a consumer might have had an issue with so we can address it right away. And I think that's something that hardware companies in our industry don't do because, like you said, most of them are, it's overseas manufacturers. So as a very proud American company that we design, engineer, manufacture, 3D print, we do all of that stuff here.
Yep.
And our customer service is here. And so we stand behind everything 100%. So customers know that if they ever have a faulty device, ever have a problem with anything, they can call us any time of day or night. We'll take care of them. We don't, now we're using things like Instagram and Facebook Instant Messenger to give them instant access. Think about it as a consumer. If you have a problem, you either have to send an email and then wait a couple days.
Yep.
Or you have to pick up the phone and call customer service and talk to a robot until you can finally get to the person you want. So giving them access to us anywhere, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the chat boards, and getting a response within minutes as opposed to within hours has really started to set us apart and to introduce us as a company to those customers. They may have gone into a shop and just bought our product from a vape store or a tobacco shop or something like that, and they don't know the first time they pick up our product that who we are as a company and what we do. But the second that they have that interaction with us, that word of mouth spreads, And a big part of our awareness growth has been through that word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And predominantly from an advertising and marketing standpoint, we use Instagram just because that's where people are right now in learning about, the new devices and new products that are coming out.
Interesting. So you're finding your new customers either through word of mouth primarily? Is that your number one source, word of mouth referrals, or is it coming from your Instagram marketing efforts?
I think it's about 50-50 because
Okay.
on Instagram we've actually done a really good job of, we've started to now a little bit, but in the beginning we didn't pay any, influencers. There are a lot of people who have Instagram pages with 100,000 followers, 1.5 million followers, whatever the case may be, and they have a lot of power as far as touching the user base and the community. We would just send them free product and say, tell us what you think honestly.
Yep.
We were really proud of the devices we were making, and we're like, just tell us. And a lot of those people, were became huge advocates for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that advocacy really started the word of mouth.
Okay.
So I think one goes in hand with the other.
Yep. So the people who are on Instagram following your channel, who are they? I mean, like for me, Instagram is not something I personally use, but your market obviously is. I mean, who is your market that's living on Instagram, that's hanging out there?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know if it's if they're hanging out. I think there's the age group of I think it's past for us in our industry. It's the 25 to 35 that are Instagram obsessed.
Okay. Yep.
Taking pictures of their food.
Yeah.
But they're into fashion and style and what's new and what's hot and as that segment of the pop, we kind of watch those trends and try and understand what's going on. It's the reason why with our latest releases of products, we've really started to try and focus on fashion.
Okay.
We in our industry, products are very utilitarian, right?
Yep.
It's like industrial aluminum and black, and maybe you might get a brushed pink, that's
Yep.
still aluminum. And so we started to design our products in a way that we're like, what if I could take a fabric that was on a pair of Christian Louboutin shoes and use that on one of our newest Mi Pod devices.
Okay.
How would that play with a demographic that is socially smoking, let's say, that's looking for a better alternative?
Right.
And so we're trying to find these unique avenues that make us different and stand out. And it's been really interesting on how that's set us apart from everybody else in the market. And it's also, you talked earlier about people that come back and repeat buy. For some of our smaller devices, it's actually created multiple users, meaning people who they don't own just one Mi Pod, they own 4. Depending on the outfit they're wearing that they're going to take out.
Can you share what a Mi Pod is?
Yeah, sure. So our Mi Pod it's a vape device that uses a small pod as opposed to a tank. So vaporizers in general come with a battery and then a tank. And then you'd fill the tank with an e-liquid. Where you push the button on the battery, it heats up a coil that vaporizes the e-liquid. That's traditionally how everything works. The pod systems are different in that they're much more compact. They're much smaller. You typically, instead of filling a tank and having to replace a coil and all that, you just fill up the pod. The pod lasts for a couple days. When you're done with the pod, you toss it and get a new one. And so it's much simpler. It's much easier on the go. They typically don't produce the same amount of vapor production that you would get out of the big one, but users use a higher nicotine level in a pod system than they would in a big vape device. So they get their craving satisfied, but they don't use it as often.
Right. So what's your thinking behind not going aggressively into the e-liquid market as well and selling that product, which is a consumable, and they'll be buying it again and again from you? What's your thinking behind not going to that market right now?
It's interesting. So the pod system market let me preface this. The pod system market in general, a lot of the industry is starting to transition there because users want something that's simpler and easier to use.
Okay.
Especially the vast majority of the smoking population that is transitioning to vaping. It's a demographic that starts to push past the 30 into 35, 40, 45, and so they're looking for something simpler and easier to use. And in the pod system market, you have guys that do make their own e-liquid, so the pods come pre-filled.
Okay.
That would be like Apple, right? So Apple Computer, for instance, it's their own. If you want to use their device, you have to buy their juice, right? Like you have to buy things that work in their architecture.
Right.
And then we're more like Android, right? So our devices come with refillable pods. So you can use any e-liquid on the market you want, which gives users, it's a much better value over the long term because they can, buy a bottle of e-liquid and fill their pods. It costs them a third or a fourth of what it would cost to just buy pre-filled pods. So we give the users that choice. And the reason we didn't get into the liquid market is we wanted that open system, and we're not experts in it. As soon as I start getting into chemical compounding and you're talking about needing a CGMP facility, pharmaceutical grade laboratory, if we're going to do something as a company, we're going to do it the right way. As engineers, my background's engineering, so as product, consumer product people, we wanted to stick with our strength. And one of the, most important things I think our business coaches tell us is focus.
Right.
Don't try and do too many different products. Don't try and go in too many different categories. And it's easy when you're starting a new business, when you have a product or a service in a category, to see ancillary products or ancillary services as opportunity.
Yep.
And to run down those rabbit holes. But as a smaller business, it's one of the most valuable things for us is focus because you have limited resources. And while it may look like every bright, shiny object that you want to go grab and add to your repertoire is important, it will distract you.
Right.
And it will take away from winning in your market or your niche. And so for us, we don't make all kinds of vape devices. We make smaller, compact devices. And in our niche, we stick to fashion-forward devices. And we stick to hardware because liquid's not our strength.
Right.
And instead, what we did was we partnered with companies that we've met throughout industry trade shows and networking and things like that we saw were doing it the right way.
Okay.
Guys that are doing the right manufacturing, that are complying with all of the regulatory environment. And we partnered up with them and said, look, we'll promote your liquid as part of, as partners with our system, if you'll promote our system when you're promoting your liquid. And forming those partnerships with our industry gave us a much broader reach than trying to go out and make our own e-liquid.
Right.
Because then we would have been one e-liquid amongst a million others, and we weren't experts in it, so we'd be trying to fight an uphill battle. Instead, we went out and found experts that were already spending all the money on marketing, and we tagged along. And that gave us a lot more exposure and allowed us to focus on our own core business.
Yeah, makes sense. Before you said that your growth of your sales is driven by two things, referrals and from Instagram. Can you add a little bit more about how you might have accelerated the new user acquisition from those two channels? Is there anything you did on the referral side to encourage it? Anything you did on the Instagram side to get more people engaged and seeing your new products?
I think, yeah, there's a couple parts of it. One is we started going to every trade show we could that was industry specific to us. And not B2B shows only, but also the B2C shows. So it put us in front of consumers that were looking for what's new and what's hot. That helped us build up not only like an email database, but it also allowed us to share our Instagram handle at all of the shows. So it got people to follow us, and so we could keep in touch with them after the show. And then the B2B shows allowed us to do networking to meet the distributors. right? Who are the guys that are servicing all of the places where I really want my product sold?
Right.
And it was important to be there as owners. A lot of times it's like, let me hire a trade show team. I'll send them out. And now as our business has grown, we do have a trade show team, but owners, Amir and I still go as often as we can to these shows because you meet the owners of the other businesses and you form relationships. And it builds, it takes time, but you build a core that when you release something new, you're going to be able to hit the consumers because
right.
they've seen you and you have access to them. And you're going to be able to get it into the right distributors' hands because you've learned about who they are and how they operate.
Right. Okay. How about on the referral side? What did you have any programs in place? Any contests? Any promotions to encourage people to make more referrals of your product?
Yeah, certainly. There was a time, and most industries can still do this. Early on, in our, I guess a year and a half, 2 years ago, you could still do like giveaways, right? So we would do contests on Instagram, like, share this post with 5 of your friends, like this feed, leave a comment, tell us what you think, and be entered into the contest.
Okay.
And to win, free products and things like that. Once in 2016, once the FDA regulations came through in August, the regulation guidance basically told us that we could no longer give away free products. So a lot of that has stopped. But it shouldn't deter other industries, right? If you're not selling a age-restricted product, you absolutely should, leverage contests and giveaways, and not just on your own Instagram page, but also through the influencers in the industry. Send them 10 free products and tell them that they can do a giveaway.
Right.
And that will really start to drive awareness. And part of the giveaway requirement needs to be that they have to like and share your page as well.
Right. Okay, good. What are the trends that you're seeing that you expect to unfold over the next few years, and how are you positioning your company to either take advantage of them or perhaps get out of the way if they are a negative trend?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of different ways we could go with that question. First and foremost, for our industry, there's 2 sides. On the electronic cigarette side, there's in the U.S., there's FDA regulation that's coming through, right? So we have benchmarks and milestones that we have to comply with every couple of months. Something else comes up that's a little bit more stringent. But as we hit these milestones, going towards a pre-market approval process in 2022, basically it'll get to the point where we're not allowed to release a product to the market unless it has pre-market approval from the FDA.
Right.
That's in the U.S. So strategically, we've been really building our international business over the past year to mitigate our risk associated with the costs associated with launching new products in a regulated environment.
Right. Okay.
And then we're making strategic investments in compliance officers and the right legal partners and things like that to make sure that we have sustainability over the long term. In Europe, we were already compliant with all of the European regulations, and so it's kind of for us to continue to grow that business is really important for us from a stability standpoint.
Yes, I can see how the FDA regulations are going to slow down your new product releases, but at the same time, I think it makes it more difficult for new entrants to come into your business, come into your industry as well.
Yeah, we are, as huge advocates for the industry, we're also very much in favor of logical and responsible regulation, right? Meaning that the guidelines and rules need to be put in place to not stifle innovation.
Yep.
And to allow companies that are doing it the right way to be able to get through the stage gates to get new products to market to help benefit public health and the end consumer.
Right.
That doesn't exist right now. The way that the current regulations are written is basically they're treating us like tobacco. And there's no tobacco in any of our products, but yet we still have to. Yeah, it's a long story. That's for another time. But yes, I think smart, logical, and responsible regulation is important for industries in order to help companies that are doing it the right way, like ours, as we grow. To if you're doing it the right way, then it keeps out the people who aren't.
Right.
Another thing that we've really done to diversify, that's why we got into the cannabis space about 2 years ago, in 2016, when all of this stuff started going on. We were like, well, we look at what was going on in the cannabis market, and it's like the technology didn't exist. It was pretty terrible. And we thought, you know what, we can make some modifications and really, cater to that end demographic too, and not have any of the deal with, a lot of the issues that are happening on as quote unquote a tobacco product. And so
Right.
We were able to adapt some of our technologies for that space. And we make the picks and shovels for the green gold rush. We don't touch the flower, we don't touch the oil.
Right.
So we're not limited by anything. So that's why we started to get into the cannabis market, was for diversification purposes, and we're fortunate that because we don't touch any of the flower oil, we're kind of relatively neutral. We can ship across state lines, we can ship all over the world, we can make products that are technology, right, as opposed to, regulated.
Do you see going ahead that the bulk of your growth is still going to come from the e-cigarette market, or is it going to be coming from the cannabis market?
It's both. I mean, the electronic cigarette market's growing globally as well, but the cannabis market has taken off like a rocket ship. And but the cannabis market hasn't adapted the advances in the technology as quickly as the vape industry has. And so because of that, there's still a lot of older technology being used. We have some new patents that we're getting ready to patented products that we're getting ready to release that we think will really catapult us into the cannabis business. And for us, our cannabis market is very much an OEM-based business right now. That's not a branded to consumer business. We're using our technology and we're selling products to the growers or the extractors that are growing flower or extracting oil, and we brand it under their labels, and then they sell it.
Right.
And it's just because in that space to get into the dispensary, it's just a different distribution channel. But we had the technology, we had the manufacturing capabilities, and so it became a really good fit for us as we've developed new technology.
Right, and it goes back to your strategy of finding the experts in whatever you're looking to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have them do it for you.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. Geoff, you shared a lot of fantastic ideas and insights as to how you grew your business. For the listeners out there who are interested in doing business with smoking vapor, either as a consumer of your products or maybe interested in doing some sort of strategic alliance, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you or your team?
Yeah, sure. They can reach out to me directly. My email is Geoff, it's Geoff, at smoking, SMOKING, vapor.com. So Geoff at smokingvapor.com. Feel free to email me. Or just give a call to our customer service number, which is 800-768-9982, and somebody can transfer them over to me. But yeah, we're always looking forward to speaking with other business owners, understanding the challenges they're having, and things that maybe we can share. And we're looking for business partnerships ways as well as our business grows. And we've been very fortunate that the growth from 2014 to 2017. From 2015 to 2018, we also grew again. We made the Inc. 5,000 now 3 years in a row, and we're looking forward to continuing to grow our business. And the best way to do that is to, continue to build the relationships with people in our own industry and people outside of that, so that we can continue to be better.
Yeah, it really makes sense. It's being able to leverage other people's expertise, really helps you grow more rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Geoff, and sharing how you grew your company so fast.
Yeah.
We've been speaking with Geoff Habicht of Smoking Vapor about how he grew his business 454% over 3 years. To listen to other interviews with other fast-growing companies, or to learn how we can increase your firm's high-ticket sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.